Hi, Diego Rodrigues. You are the leader of the opposition in Somerset. And I wanted to have a chat about your role really today and also how you ended up in politics. And then we can kind of chat about where you think we are in relation to the Liberal Democrat administration. Let's start off with how you ended up in politics.
God. Well, hi Dawn, thanks for having me. Great to be alongside my fantastic deputy group leader, obviously the best in the business. How did I get involved in politics? Oh, do you know, it's just so like cringeworthy to a certain degree. So the story that I tell about my journey into local politics is my family, and people who know me know this, my family are not originally from the UK. I'm originally from Portugal. They moved over to the UK because mum and dad were in search of better opportunities, whether that was education for their kids, better work opportunities to get further in life. Mum was like a basket weaver. My granddad had a little basket weaving business, and this was the whole thing back in this part of Portugal that they lived. And she was a basket weaver. She didn't want to be a basket weaver for the rest of her life like her father was. She was ambitious, brilliantly so. And so they moved to the UK in search of those opportunities. We lived in a council flat in North London. They worked tremendously hard, two, three jobs at any one time. Hardly saw my parents sometimes. We looked after my auntie because they wanted to be able to buy their council flat, because they wanted to buy a house, to own a business, all of that amazing, ambitious stuff. And they achieved that. They bought the council flat, bought a house later on in Essex, bought a business, and they'd done well. And for me, my family have succeeded so much. And me wanting to go back into politics was a way of almost in a way of saying, like, thank you, Britain, you're amazing because look what you've done to our family. We've succeeded. And also a way of me giving back as well. I just want to be part, I feel like I have like a duty in a silly way to give back and to try and be a part of the process of creating the sort of opportunities that were there for my parents as well, for other people. And that's really what drove me into politics and whatever small change I could do. And at the minute, it kind of feels like emptying poo bins.
So,
Success.
so what was the first time when you kind of thought, "Ah, that would be an idea. Maybe I could stand for that." What made you want to do that? Because you were already in Bridgewater at that point.
Yeah, so when I was in Essex as well, I was kind of leafleting. I don't know if there was anything in particular, any particular reason or moment which I then said, yeah, actually, I want to like be a politician or whatever. I don't think there was. It was kind of just getting involved in delivering leaflets and a bit of door knocking. And then one day someone asked me, why don't you be a councillor? And I was like, oh, all right.
It's interesting because so often people say that they are just invited to stand. And we forget to ask people, I think. We just assume that people will step forward because that's what they want to do. But actually, it's about identifying those people in the community that are really doing great things or have some great ideas. And you think, well, why don't you step forward? Because it'll be great to have you at the table.
And I make an effort now because of the journey that I went through, well, that small journey. I make an effort now of when I see someone who has some sort of interest, whether they're interested in a local issue that I've raised and are passionate about it, or might help me with some leafleting. I always say to them, why not be a counsellor? Why not? And there's always 101 reasons why someone can't be a counsellor, and you've really got to convince them. There's one reason. There's one really good reason why you should be. So I do make a conscious effort to try and encourage people to come forward.
And actually, the thing is that you've got a really amazing team around you as well as councillors in Somerset. It must be a real honour to be the leader of the opposition, where a group of councillors have elected you to represent them.
Yeah, it is an honour, and it's also a huge responsibility as well, because our group, there are 31 of us in our opposition group, and we need to do our role as an opposition, as an effective, strong opposition in holding the council to account. Not only well, the main reason is because we want the council to work effectively and efficiently for our residents. That's really the priority as an opposition group. And where the council isn't doing a good job, we have to, tell them and tell everyone else as well to try and encourage them to do it better. And so it is a huge responsibility to lead an opposition group. But it's also a huge honour for people to put that trust in you to be able to lead that opposition and lead the good fight, if you like, And it's not just obviously holding the Lib Dems to account, in this case, the Lib Dems, but it's also trying to drive your message as an opposition group, and particularly as we move forward towards May 2027 elections, in kind of setting out a vision as to what we would do differently.
I think it's really interesting when you step into local government and you kind of go, wow, I didn't even know all this stuff was happening. Do you think there's a real disconnect with the public about what local government is all about? Because there's a lot of talk about, oh, we know that what's happening in the NHS or, on border control. But do you think there's a lot of people who actually just don't understand what local government is about?
Do you know, one of the things that frustrates me, and these local elections, most recent ones, frustrated me so much, is that people were voting not for who was going to fix your potholes. They were voting for a bigger national message, whatever that national message was, depending which political party you're supporting. And that frustrated me because, Kemi Badenoch or Keir Starmer or Nigel Farage, whoever it is, they're not going to fix your potholes. They may fund the council a bit so you can fix the potholes, but the way in which your potholes are repaired is a duty of your local council. And I think I do feel, and we'll tell next year as well if it is moving that way. At least this year, it's moved these local elections. The focus is too much on the national picture, not enough in the elections that I have experienced previously on those really core local issues. And our duty as local councillors and local campaigners is to try and change that tone, particularly when we're out talking to people, that actually what you should be thinking about is your potholes, your poo bins, your school transport, and all the other things that we do.
Do you think though that there's maybe local government doesn't communicate things very well? Do you think we as a party or all parties are more focused ourselves on because remember when you are voting in a local election and you vote for a Conservative or Lib Dem or Labour or whatever it is, you are endorsing that party. So, I think there's that I don't know. Do we have to communicate more about our values? How do we get that message across that if you vote for a conservative, you're not just endorsing Kemi, you may be, but you are getting the following values along with that person.
Do you know, it's an interesting question you pose in terms of whether or not we communicate enough kind of all those local government types of stories and issues. I don't think we do, actually. And I don't think that we as local councillors do it enough either. And it's not because we're not trying, it's because we're so busy, I think, on the day to day, on the attending those scrutiny committee meetings, the HR committee meeting, full council, dealing with the casework. It takes up so much of your time just dealing with the job, if you like, that too often we forget to tell people what the job is and what it is that we have done to drive that message. Oh, actually, okay, well, Councillor Dawn Denton, she's done X, Y, Z, and all the other letters of the alphabet because it is that and more. But if you don't say, then we don't know. And and I think we need to become much more better at communicating what we do, not just doing what we do.
I suppose, like an MP, when you're an MP, well, you have a team, so there's a different element there. But it's like running a little business. And part of that is about the marketing. And it's the continued marketing to advise and keep, the message alive. Because I did see recently, and people say this all the time, oh, it's interesting how we only see politicians coming out when there's an election due. And yet, that might be the only time, like you say, that our casework has to take a back step if we're going to start putting more time into telling people what we're doing. I mean, how do we balance that?
Do you know, I think there's more. I think the challenge is there's more of an expectation on us as well as local councillors. Um, and this is one of the challenges, I suppose, of social media, right? Once upon a time, as a councillor, you didn't have social media. The way you contacted your constituents was when you had casework, you turn up at so and so's door and be like, all right, Mrs. Miggins, yeah, I'm here to sort out your issue of your childcare, whatever it is. And whereas nowadays people want things just like that. Like we're so reactive, and we want something now. In fact, we want it yesterday, and it's too easy for people to use social media as a way in which to complain. Or people expect you to be on social media. People expect you to be seen through that prism rather than wait, we know Dawn is at the full council meeting today because that is the role of a local councillor. That's changed, and that's fine because that's just the world we live in. But that's a challenge in which that we need to kind of step up to and do better in.
Do you think social media is the key, or do you think there are other avenues that we can reach our residents?
Well, there's loads of avenues, really. I mean, I use social media because it's quite a big one at the moment. I mean, the best way you can talk to your residents, but time is precious, is door knocking and just
Yeah.
talking to them face to face. And it's really difficult to do that. But if you're a councillor, and lots of councillors do this, the best ones do this, I know you do, Dawn, but going to your parish council meetings, going to community events and being seen, particularly if you represent a division, an area where you have, eight, seven, 10, I don't know, parish councils. You can't door knock every single door. So going to those community events and being seen, being proactive rather than reactive is really key.
So, what do you enjoy the most about being a counselor?
Oh, Lordy, do you know what? It's probably really silly. What I enjoy most is fixing the small things. And I'd probably say this more so as a town councillor, because I'm a town councillor as well as Somerset councillor. Because on a town council level, you can, especially now, you can, if there's a problem with a bin, you can actually sort it out almost within 24, 48 hours. And that's something that matters because if a bin is overflowing in someone's road, that's what they see, that's what they recognize straight away, right? As a local authority, empty my bin, or the bin's broken. I can deal with that. I can speak to my town council officers, and they'll deal with it within 48 hours. And that's what makes me feel like happy about my job is the small things which make a difference to everyone's day-to-day life. Not necessarily going to a full council meeting and sitting in a council meeting for 5 hours and having to debate a piece of, a 500 word document which has already been debated on in various other scrutiny committees on the way there. That doesn't excite me. Exciting me is the small differences you can make to people's lives.
Yeah. So then what on the other side, the flip side of the coin is the toughest part of the job?
The toughest, oh man. I would say one of the hard parts of my job is it's going up against the Liberal Democrats, going up against any other party, not just Liberal Democrats. I say Liberal Democrats because they run the council. Um, because if the council is doing a bad job somewhere, for example, special education needs, where they are sadly doing a bad job when it comes to delivering education healthcare plans for young people, and that's a terrible thing. But you're having to, and rightly so, you're having to, go through lots of pages of documents. You're having to listen to one scrutiny committee, an officer say something in one committee, an officer say one another, and you're having to pull all these things together. I'm not saying it's the thing I hate the most, but it is difficult. Having to pull together all the information and then putting forward a case if something is not correct, putting forward a case to say this is not correct because of X, Y, Z, and actually having people listen to it. And sometimes it's actually trying to tell the media, look, this is an issue here. We're raising the questions. No one's picking up at scrutiny meetings. So can you pick this up to raise the profile, to apply pressure on the local authority? That's hard. And then when you have the idea of, okay, this is what we want to do, is then the process of, right, how do you bring that to a committee meeting? How do you bring that to a full council meeting? How do we try and get Somerset Council to do something better? That's a tough thing because it's a big process and it takes lots of thinking and bringing lots of people with you. Like it's difficult. It's fun, but it is a difficult thing to do.
Yeah, and it is so much, the machine is so big at the council. And it's interesting because I had a conversation with one of our colleagues and she said to me, "How long does it feel like you've been at the council?" And I said, "A lifetime. It feels like I've been there forever." And it's just over 4 years now. And then she said, "But I only feel like I'm getting the tip of the iceberg of how the process happens."
Mm.
Because
Yeah.
it's such a big machine. And there are times when I feel sorry for the officers because every 4 years they've got different people to deal with. And then if there's changes in between, they have different people, different styles, different conversations, priorities. It must be a bit of a challenge to be an officer at the council.
Yeah, look, the officers are pros because, particularly if they've been there for years and years, and some of them have been in local government for years and years, and they know what they're doing. But I can imagine, particularly when you have a change in administration, like last time round when you had a Conservative administration go to a Lib Dem administration. That's a whole different change, a whole set of new people running the council, a whole set of new councillors and your top team. Now that must be quite difficult, but they're trained to do that. But
Mm.
I've been a councillor, I started as a town councillor back in 2015, then a district council, then a unitary councillor. I'm still learning. It's been what, 10, 11 years. 11 years, I am still learning. You never stop learning when it comes to local government, and you'll never know everything either. If you know everything, then core, you're special. And we're all special. But I don't know everything, hands up.
Yeah, it is. It's a tough one. It really is. And when you try and explain to somebody, I'm only starting to get the hang of it. Um, it's difficult for them to want to buy into the process themselves, and say, I want to stand up and do this. But that's a whole nother conversation. So what are your struggles at the moment? You've mentioned the education, special educational needs with children. What are the other struggles that you are, battles that you're fighting that have come up in the media? We've seen them quoted. What specifically at Somerset Council are you focusing on?
The biggest thing, and it might be a bit boring, is the finances at Somerset Council because we know when the Lib Dems took control of the council, they had a really good financial inheritance from the previous administration, Conservative administration, a balanced budget, a huge investment in social care. It was one of the best budgets the Conservatives have put forward. But within 18 months of the Lib Dems taking control of the council, they declared a financial emergency. They lost control of the finances. And ever since then, there have been red flags from auditors, red flags from independent, SIPFA auditing, local government association red flags. Even the government minister has said, I've got my eyes on you folks, because they're so bad when it comes to managing finances. So that's one of the things that we have been laser focused on. For example, I say that the council, the Lib Dems enjoy wasting people's money. And I think the most obvious way for people to see that, and people do see that, is the way in which Somerset Council spends millions on consultants to tell them what to do. Um, and we found out in the 3 years that they've been running the new administration, new Somerset Council, they've spent over £90 million on consultants to tell them what to think or what to do. Now, this is at the same time where the Lib Dems declared a financial emergency. Around about the same time they declared a financial emergency, said, we ain't got no money, help. But they found £19 million to pay other people to tell them what to do. And we know that they've signed a contract with Newton, up to £20 million, again, to tell Somerset how to save money. It's just waste. And you can just think that £19 million, what else could that have done for Somerset Council? Just for an example, right? How many more, children's services workers could you employ? How many more potholes could have been filled? We know potholes out there, awful in rural roads, awful. 19 million quid would probably repair every pothole in Somerset twice over and more. There's better ways in which we can spend our money. And so the finances is one of the hot topics, and we'll carry on looking at it. And I'm sure the Lib Dems, as we get to an election next year, will say, we fixed it all, we're doing brilliantly, but we know they've done an awful job up till now.
Well, you do a really good job of reminding everybody, I must say.
Yeah, well, look, Dawn, you are also the not only are you deputy group leader, but you are lead member for finance, and you play a huge role. And people watching this may not know the impact that you have as the lead member for finance in digging the detail and asking the questions. And you're just as important as anyone else on our team. And that's the difference between Conservatives and other political parties. We are a team of hardworking individuals working together, and you are a huge asset to our Conservative team.
Oh, thank you. That's really nice of you to say.
And now you've got to give me my tenner that was promised.
It's gone up. It's £15 now. But I must say that I've really enjoyed spending time with the Conservatives. Every time we get together, we work hard and we are just, it's always such a positive conversation. Like even when we are struggling with something or we've got a challenge or we're frustrated with something, there's something incredibly positive about being around our team. And I love it, I must say. I think and I'm so pleased that we've got so much experience in our team as well. People who've run the council. And yeah, it's a lovely place to be part of the Conservative group. I love it. So now we have a year to go. We've got 1 year to go before we do, yeah, before we really are kicking off with a big local election here in Somerset. So, what are the plans without giving any game plan away? But what are you hoping to achieve over the next 12 months?
So in just under 12 months' time, I'm hoping to achieve is kicking out the Liberal Democrats and forming a Conservative administration. That is the goal. Um, but what we will carry on doing, and what we have been very good at doing, though, as an administration, is continuing to highlight the failures of the administration. And no doubt it will continue to be finance. But there are a couple of other things that I want people to be focusing on is SEND, special education needs for children, because we are not doing good at that and we need to do better. But interesting as well, we're spending a lot of money on tribunal, on court cases where parents are taking Somerset Council to their droves. And there's also a court case at the moment that's been heard and waiting for an outcome on a disabled gentleman who's taken Somerset Council to court as well because of his reduction in council tax. So let's keep an eye out for that. But we need to be prepared to take over in 2027. So we'll be doing that piece of work, obviously, as an administration, as any good opposition would be doing, is preparing to lead. And that involves talking to all of our members, all of our councillors, and also to the wider audience out there in Somerset and saying, what do you want a better, a stronger Somerset to look like? Tell us so that we can prepare it in our manifesto and deliver a stronger, brighter, Conservative Somerset for everyone.
I love it. It's so exciting. It's so exciting what we can achieve if we get to run the council. I also just wanted to ask you how you feel about the party nationally. I know that we were talking about keeping things local, but we do belong to a bigger machine, which is the Conservative Party, which had got a bit of a hammering last week at the beginning of the month with the local elections. But how do you feel about the National Party and specifically about how Kemi's doing as a leader?
So I think that we are on the right track. Absolutely. So I backed Kemi. I don't have to tell you that. I will. I backed Kemi for leader. I thought she had it in her, and I really enjoyed how she told her story about the way. Well, she's an engineer, and I found it really interesting when she was selling herself to us as members, if you like, telling us about the way she thinks and wanted to fix things and put things right, and it's a process and not just jumping to conclusions, all that sort of stuff. And I thought, brilliant, this is what we need as a party, a thinker, someone who's going to think about something before they say something. And that's exactly what Kemi has done. And, I really admire, and maybe it's because I grew up for a large part of my childhood in an all-female household, I really admire strong, independent women, women who are not afraid to say what they think and do what they think. And I just really, so when I look at Kemi and the way that she continues to evolve, this strong leader who believes what she thinks and says what she thinks, I just admire her more and more, this strong independence. And I hope that gives encouragement to other women out there, specifically, really, to say, cool, if she can do it, then yeah, so can I. I hope people say that and think that because she inspires me and I hope she inspires everyone else out there. But I think we're on the right track. She's doing a brilliant job. Her personal improving ratings are increasing, and we're doing better generally in the polls. I know May next year we will be even better in the polls, and we will be ready to knock the Lib Dems off their off their seats, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. So if somebody's considering, or maybe
Mm.
has never thought about standing, so they may just, kind of dip in and out of politics, send the odd article to mates in a WhatsApp group, and what would you say to people to encourage them to maybe put themselves forward to stand, irrespective of what party they are? Because of course we just want a wider range of people to represent us.
Yeah, I would say. So when I speak to people and mention this, the first thing someone will say to me, "Oh, it's not for me. I'm not that smart or whatever." I mean, I'm not that smart at all. You, we need people of all backgrounds, of all walks of life, of all experiences, of all ages, and there is nothing to stop you from putting your name forward, if you get elected, fantastic. Sitting in a council meeting and putting your perspective and your values forward when discussing an item on the agenda or whatever it is. And I think it's such an honourable thing to do to put yourself forward. And I think it's a great thing also to be a voice for your community and for people to say, right, I'm going to contact Dawn because she is my representative on Somerset Council. Like, that's a wonderful thing to do. And you can do it well. Everyone's got their life experiences and we all add value. We all add value onto Somerset Council. So if you're thinking about it, even if actually, if you're not thinking about it, then start thinking about it. And if you want to talk about it, then speak to Dawn, speak to me, speak to anyone who's a counsellor at the moment, and I'm sure that they can convince you to do the deed.
Fantastic. And how do people get hold of you if they are keen or they're just interested to find out more, or even if they're in the Bridgewater area, or Somerset, anywhere in Somerset, and has some ideas or suggestions for you moving forward, or just curious about the job? How can they get hold of you?
So just drop me a line. No, I won't give you my phone number, but mind you, it's actually on the Somerset Council website. So you can either go on the Somerset Council website, look for my contact details through there, or go on Facebook and look for Diogo Rodrigues, Opposition Leader, Somerset Council. You'll find me. Drop me a message, drop me a comment. Wherever you are in Somerset, if you want to stand, I will come to you and I will see you and talk to you directly.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining me. And I am really looking forward to the next 12 months. I know it's going to be very exciting. And I know that we are going to do great things in Somerset. So thank you again for being part of the process.
Thank you, Dawn, for being a fantastic counsellor and an even better deputy leader of our group.
Thank you.